Thank you. The U.S. and its allies are being accused of running a CNN war of media on the airstrikes in Syria, while the jihadists of ISIS, also called ISIL in the Islamic State, are reportedly gaining even more ground in Iraq.
And the fear of self-radicalized terrorists on U.S. soil grows in the wake of the deadly shooting in Ottawa, Canada. Joining us, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff, representing Burbank in the 28th District. He's a senior member of the House Intelligence Committee. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
We now have new surveillance video released from the deadly attack in Ottawa. You were briefed in Washington, D.C. On all of it while it was unfolding. What do we know now that we didn't know a couple of days ago?
Well, we've seen a couple attacks recently in Canada. Both appear to be self-radicalized, the so-called lone wolves. Some are radicalized with online propaganda from ISIS and inspired to commit acts of violence like this. They're not part of a broader terrorist plot, but nonetheless, a very troubling kind of expansion of these one-off attacks like we saw in New York City recently as well. They're very hard to predict. They're very hard to stop. If there's no communication, no foreign-born plot, no really opportunity for the intelligence agencies to zero in, it's hard to stop. We're going to have to use different strategies. We're going to have to make sure our FBI works closely with community-based organizations and religious organizations, and that we provide a way for families and parents to notify law enforcement when they have a family member who they are concerned is either radicalized or mentally ill or both.
And that's the thing. I think since 9/11, what we feared is this big sort of terrorist attack that could take months or years of planning, and instead it's this lone wolf approach. Is this the new wave of terror, do you think, for the future?
Well, I think it's going to be with us for some time. And, we've always had to cope with, we didn't call it terror, but it was these, senseless acts of homicide by people who were mentally unbalanced or at the fringes of society. Now, maybe some of those same people are inspired by ISIS-like propaganda. So this is not a new phenomenon. It's perhaps a new motivation. And ISIS is more sophisticated in their propaganda, so I think we are going to see more attacks like this. The good news is, though, that we have, I think, dramatically degraded the ability of terrorist organizations to do the kind of massively disruptive attacks like we saw on 9/11 that cost many, many lives and could really, cripple the country. So we have made progress on that, even as we confront these new and disparate attacks.
As someone who has access to the classified intelligence and to the people who are in the middle of this, you are one of the policy makers. Are you surprised that we haven't had more homegrown attacks here in the U.S.? We've seen attacks in Canada, we've seen them overseas. How come they haven't happened here?
I have been surprised, really for quite some time that we haven't seen, the kind of terrible bombings that Europe experienced, that Israel experiences, that we have seen now proliferate around the world. We are seeing, in the case of the Boston Marathon bombing, that we're not immune from this kind of violence. But I think that we have done a much better job in assimilating communities within the United States than many of countries in Europe and elsewhere around the world. We don't have quite the same insular, alienated populations that other countries deal with. And that's a real strength of America, being a melting pot. But nonetheless, we're a big, open society. That makes us vulnerable. And we're just going to have to recognize that vulnerability, live with it, be resilient, and that's what we've always done.
And if we turn our attention to Iraq and Syria, and of course the way President Obama is handling the situation with ISIS to destroy and degrade, do you believe it's working?
I think it's the right strategy, and I think we are seeing some signs of success. Before it began, ISIS was really on the move. They were growing rapidly in territory. Now I think that momentum has largely been arrested. We're seeing just in the last week some advances in the other direction by Kurdish forces, by Iraqi forces. But I think Americans are going to have to be patient, and this is very difficult for us. We're not a people. But unless we want to come in with massive amounts of troops on the ground, we're going to have to be patient. And given that only now are we ending the combat mission in Afghanistan 13 years later, and even now the end there is still somewhat in doubt as we see the Taliban has renewed strength in different parts of Afghanistan. Massive occupations are not without their problems also. And I think the president is right not to leap to that strategy, even though many now are calling, hey, it's been months and we don't see an end to ISIS. It must be the wrong strategy. I think we need some strategic patience.
All right. Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.